difference between the, the Internet of Things fridge in my house, where again my neighbor's kid shuts it off and I drink some spoiled milk. Not a big deal, right? I mean, okay, it's a connected appliance, not a big deal. Driverless car is different than connected car, right? Big time. I mean, if you're talking about cars out there on the road with no driver and then flying cars someday, right? Now you're talking about things that are moving all over with no human control, nobody to really override that system. Me getting an updated app onto my front panel is completely different, right? And then we start to get into what we're seeing. In my area of focus and interest for at least the products that I work on, is critical infrastructure. So we're talking about nuclear this or that, right? President's heart could be in there. All these things that Jay's bringing up are the real concerns and where we do need to focus our security concerns initially. So I see different things in SCADA networks and how you make a flexible platform to put in and bring that back, right? Isn't Internet of Things really just connected SCADA or industrial controls? But what did we have back in the day? Our security measures were the air gap. I remember working in places where they said, we don't have to worry about it. We're access controlled and we got an air gap. No one can touch the system except our trusted personnel. That's not the case anymore. Now everything's connected. So we start thinking transportation, public transportation. We start thinking our drinking water. We start thinking about our oil and gas, our natural resources, our power, right? That, to me, from a security standpoint, is where IoT starts. That is where we're going to see the biggest uptick in what we do, and we're going to need the most flexibility. I think we were working on a project over in Austria, is it? Austrian Railways. They want an X21 interface. Anybody remember that? Me neither. Right? I think it was out before I was born, seriously. And that was the request they come in, but they want security built into that. So they're facing, right, forklift upgrade, complete network overhaul, or how do I virtualize and put something in small and flexible security perspective to connect what is now considered an IoT for my critical infrastructure. To me, that's the path. That's where we need to focus first. Personally, I don't really care about my connected fridge, right? But what I do, what keeps me up at night and what gets me up early in the morning is how do we protect all these other things that we didn't think about. My son's a runner. He runs over at the local high school. And there's this big water tower that sits there. And they don't want you getting to the actual physical water tower, right? This is kind of funny to me. And they have like a fence, and it's really high. I can't climb over it. It's got 2 padlocks on it. I think it's got barbed wire on the top. And then there's a bunch of underground cables running over, and there's a control panel on the outside, I guess to make it easier for the guy. And there's a big red button on it. And that guy in me just says, what happens if I just punch this thing and then say, Stanley, we got to go, get in the car, right? Practice is over. I don't know, but someone should know, right? And why is that on the outside of the like it just, we don't often think of what controls the systems that we depend on daily to eat, sleep, move, communicate, right? That's what matters. And I think that's where we're going to see the uptick. That is, I should say, where we're seeing the uptick now. So it's that's important that we focus on those areas first, figure it out there, and then we can worry about, our refrigerators and our car apps and all that stuff.
Okay.
Keep turning it off. As much as I don't want him to drink sour milk, I would say this, though. As soon as you put that refrigerator in your supply line's luncheonette, and he's controlling it with his phone, then you're going to start worrying about that refrigerator. And I think 5G is going to make that ever more true, right? So I do think, worrying about the last item on those in a supply chain environment and other environments, especially in a world that's commingled, controlled and uncontrolled devices, really makes the threats a lot closer than it might feel.
You agree?
Yeah.
I was going to say, so when conveniences become weaponized, again, we're seeing the conveniences that we all take part in now being weaponized for somebody else's benefit. Ransomware for hospitals, per se. Soon it's going to be you getting a call from somebody saying, I'm going to control your whole house if you don't give me $1,000. It's not too far off, and I know it could possibly happen tomorrow to somebody. And as long as, until a lot of people start experiencing this, policy won't change, security parameters won't change. Heck, Homeland Security is worried about the trucking industry because telematics, which controls trucks, could be turned off by a computer by a guy sitting outside of a truck station. You start getting 50 truck stations turning off all the trucks, then the economy is going to go into the, you know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, on a snowstorm, if I can't get something within 3 days, there's not going to be anything left. Well, the same difference can be applied to this. So again, in the 70s, we had cars that had seatbelts were optional. Now it's all required. And now, in the cars, the ODB2 ports that were used for convenience for mechanics to do diagnostics can now be weaponized against military vehicles, fleet management components. Again, disruptors. Again, everything that we see as a convenience can now be weaponized by a bad guy. And that's, again, where IoT obviously is where the threat is.
Well, you have to look at, let's say the IoT. We're back to, I got my oven, I've got my dishwasher and everything. Who builds them? Where do they come from? Do we really know what's inside there?
Supply chain issues, right?
It's the supply chain issue, which means my refrigerator could be listening to the conversations I'm having and transmitting them to some place that I don't want. Okay. I worry about the cars, Tesla. Okay, they download new software into it. What if I'm driving down the road and somebody wants to kill me, hacks into my car, and disables the brakes and turns the accelerator all the way up? I don't want that to happen. I'm sorry.
But it can.
But it can. And the same thing is going to happen. You're talking about weaponizing what we carry. Well, what if I hack into the phone? We've all had phones, hear the stories of phones exploding. What if I can go in, hack into the phone, and cause it to explode? Everybody in here, their phone explodes at the same time. You're talking about weaponizing things. Could be anything. I could do it in the house. My refrigerator could become a weapon because I can overpower it, cause a short, causes a fire, middle of the night. So you're absolutely right. I mean, but how do we control these things? How do you do it? Everybody thinks PKI. I don't think that's the way, because you've got certs that have to be replaced. The longer you make the cert in its validity period, the more vulnerable it becomes.
So to follow on to that, sorry. If PKI is not the way, if certificates are not the way, because that's what I was thinking, like you have to have some type of validity mechanism to say that either the firmware that's being loaded is trusted because it comes from your signed PKI or something. So if that's not the way...
Well, I wouldn't say it's not the way. It's probably the best way we have right now.
Okay.
But you have to look at the certificate lifecycle management. How long does that cert last? Where do I get a new cert from? And a lot of the manufacturers are looking at this saying, hey, it's another way to make this device disposable.
Right.
3 years, your cert's up, gee, you got to buy a new one. Okay, I'm only going to put a 1 year out there. PKI can help solve that problem, but I think there's got to be a better way sometime. That hasn't been invented yet. But with quantum computing coming, we have to start looking at what's next. X509 today, probably does not have the capability. We need X509X now in order to do that. And there's plenty of companies out there that are saying, hey, we're going to be your ones that want to sell you the certs. Makes a lot of money. Intrust, they make their money from selling certs.
Right.
You've got organizations out there now like Venify and Keyfactor that want to do the certificate management. How do you manage 50 billion devices?
There's a question here.
Yeah, I was wondering about the 5G networks themselves. All of them. I know I live over in Arlington County across the river. The county is putting smart streetlights all over the place, and they're going to bid out to vendors to put their 5G transmitters on those poles, in addition to the cameras, the audio speakers, everything else they're putting on those poles now. Is anyone in that world of connectiveness, not just the edge devices, but the connectivity pipes, talking about, key security, that sort of all just proliferating out there with no,
It's proliferating right now.
yeah.
They don't have a plan. How do you manage the keys? And then as soon as you manage the keys, let's say it's Verizon, they're managing the keys, they're keeping all these keys. That becomes a target. Now you got to protect the key management system, because it's just like anything. If you put data in, and I've got this big database over here, that becomes the target. So in the connected world with key management, that key management place is going to become the target. But no, they're not thinking about it right now because it costs, and they don't want to put that cost out.
I think we've got time for one more question.
Just a comment. So I'm with GSA, and just last week, we had a conference call with Ford Motor Company about their technology for fleet management within the government. And so we cut down to risk management and supply chain management and said, where is your biggest concern? And it was interesting that the comment was as the end user. Because in Ford Motor Company, with all the technology in your cars, the offensive is not taking the download or change management because of an effect or an impact possibly on your vehicle. And for the end user, the typical driver, if it's not affecting me, I don't take the time to fix it. It's like a recall. If it's not affecting me, I don't bring it in. So their concern is, with one of their concerns, the other one is obviously GPS and things of that nature, all of the technology and the options about changing things on the fly and that risk. But the end user is a big deal in that industry in terms of how you manage change and how you manage the latest technology.
Okay. All right, well, I've been given the high sign that I think our time is up here. So I want to thank the panelists. It was a great conversation. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. I know I did. Thanks for your engagement and participation. Thanks.
You okay? Hey, it was great. Good conversation. I think some very good topics. So I'll expand on what the gentleman from GSA said real quick, by the way. So he said Ford Motor Company said it was their customers they're worried about, right? The end customers, because they don't want to take a software update. So I'm driving my Dodge Ram the other day, and up on my nav comes up, hey, you need to take an update for all your nav and everything. But what was interesting is I couldn't be driving the car, and the car couldn't be on. It had to be parked. So I had to schedule it for 12 o'clock at midnight, right? I don't know who downloaded what, but it still runs. So I trust Dodge, I guess, right? So yeah. But it's an interesting concept because I trusted Dodge, and I think we see from industry, we see the same thing with the government. You know, the government sometimes doesn't want to upgrade the equipment. You know, there's a challenge here with new technologies as they roll out. And sometimes we see the customer base say, yeah, it's great, it's new technology, but it's a problem that doesn't fix a issue that I have right now, right? And this 20-year-old technology I have, it works great, right? So we have customers that are on products now, currently running them, that we haven't sold for 15 years, right? And it's a big infrastructure issue, I think, at that point, because it makes it harder and harder then for them to upgrade to get these new features and new products that's going to protect against those threats that are coming out in 5 to 10 years. So Ford Motor Company sees it as a consumer level, the same thing I think we see within the government industry. So not sure how to fix that, but it's kind of observation I had. So again, thanks to the panelists. We're going to take a 15-minute break. Lunch is going to be served right in here. So if you want to take a break, go out, do some more networking, look at some of the demos. When you come back, we'll have lunch right here, and it'll be served at your tables for you. Okay? And then we'll have our keynote speaker during lunch, which I'm really anxious to get him up here and get his views on what's happening in cyber within the federal agencies.